Welcome. I'm Dr. Elisa Hallerman, and this is Growing Down Through Soulbriety. My guest today is a dear friend, Tim Daly. Tim has been an actor for more than 40 years. He has been nominated for Emmy and SAG Awards. He is known for Madam Secretary, the long-running comedy Wings, Private Practice, and The Sopranos. In addition, he has worked extensively in the theater on and off Broadway, most recently in Night of the Iguana at the Signature Theater. This coming April, he will appear in the New York premiere of Still. Good morning, Tim. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning, Elisa.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really wanted to try something different, so thanks for being my second guinea pig. I really appreciate it. I have some great guinea pigs lined up, but I really felt like so many of the people I know that have long-term sobriety have also lived a life filled with a lot of amazing things, but a lot of dissents as well during the process of sobriety, which is essentially, for me, the definition of like what soulbriety is about, really being able to feel the darkness, but at the same time, enjoy our lives and enjoy what we're doing. And it's essential that we have both, and that we only learn wisdom from growing down during the darker times. And so I really wanted to talk to you because you have so much amazing things that have happened to you in your life, in your career, like endless things, but there's also the things that were really dark that forced you to get sober. And then later in life, through these, how many, 41 years? 41 years of life happened. And I want you to sort of tell us what that was like and how life happened and how you were able to sort of get through those moments. So I don't know where you want to start, but kind of want to start from, for you, what's the difference between abstinence, sobriety, and what I refer to as soulbriety for you?
Well, for me, abstinence is white knuckling. And I know a lot of alcoholics and people who are don't identify as alcoholics, but as heavy drinkers who go through periods of time. I certainly did, where they tried to prove to themselves that they could manage their problem with alcohol or drugs by setting a limit. I mean, I'll just tell you, one of my pet peeves is, what is it, sober January, whatever it is. It's like
dry January.
Yeah, dry January? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, if you can make it a month, you're fine. It's like every alcoholic knows and has tried to make it that day or that week or that month and convince themselves that they are then now in control of their addiction. And in my experience, that has mostly been an abject and utter failure for 100% of the people that I know.
Right.
So
but I do think dry January, it's interesting because I did some reporting on dry January in January, and there were a lot of people after that came and said that was sort of their moment of, oh, wait, either I can do it in January or I can't do it in January, or I like it that I did it in January and now I'm having trouble continuing. And I wonder, like, if we had dry January, if we would have tried it right back then. And I don't know, I think I might have, and obviously failed horribly, but I think I might have tried it. I don't know.
Well, look, I shouldn't poo-poo it entirely, because maybe for some people they have the experience of being dry for a month and it awakens them to the fact that their lives are better, more manageable. They're clearer. They're able to deal with the exigencies of life that come at them a mile a minute, whether they're drunk or sober or high. So for those people, God bless them. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
For most people I know, it's just a way of convincing themselves that they're able to continue because they think they have control over it. anyway, that abstinence to me is white knuckling, is holding on. Um, uh, and in my particular instance, whenever I did that, and throughout my drinking career, without doing a drunk log, I realized that I was spending a lot of time planning for my drinking.
Me too.
When I could do it, when I could not do it, when I could celebrate by drinking, when I could commiserate by drinking, when it was really important for me not to drink, which I often failed at. And just that brain space, that sort of low hum that was operating under the surface of my consciousness all the time was taking a lot of energy and a lot of tread off my own tire, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's what that is to me. So that's absence. Sobriety is, for me, is when you have stopped substances altogether and are beginning to get some
Are we
clarity.
talking about weed as well?
I mean, yes, weed,
Yes,
weed,
everything. Every mind-altering substance.
yes, pills, weed, blow, whatever it may be. And I think that beginning to get clear and being able to handle things in your life is one of the great benefits of sobriety, because the older I get, the more I think the wisest thing anyone has ever said about anything is shit happens. And we spend a lot of time in our lives trying to avoid trouble. And that's fine to a certain extent. But I always tell people, and I believe this myself, and I've experienced this myself, trouble is going to come. Life is filled with tremendous sadness and pain and disappointment, and tremendous joy and inspiration and love. And the key for me in my sobriety was having some tools to deal with the low points. So, initially my tool was alcohol. That helped. That seemed to help me, and it was the solution to my problems until it was my problem.
Right.
And then but I also think that anyone who solves a problem and thinks that their life is now done is fooling themselves, because something else will come up. Something is going to come at you. And if you have tools to deal with it and are sober, so that you're not repressing or deadening those feelings with a substance, then you can look at it and you can feel it, and it moves through you rather than sort of velcroing onto your heart or your soul or your stomach or someplace inside you, where it just wears at you constantly.
Right.
And being able to have the darker things, to feel them, to acknowledge them, to have tools to keep yourself from letting it derail you, and having those things move through you, is a much, much better way to live. So that to me is sobriety. Soulbriety, as you say, is really the continuing work that you can, in my opinion, can only be done once you're sober. So if you get sober, then you can, in a clear-eyed way, start looking at the things in your life. I mean, you can't look forward, nobody has a crystal ball, but you can look back and really dig down and do the things that you need to do to unearth some of the stuff that got you into trouble, and look at it to make amends to people you've hurt, and to make amends to yourself if you've been self-destructive, and to try to take care of the part of you from the past that was damaged or had trauma, or was seeking something that was then unattainable. So the sobriety, well, all of this work really, but especially the sobriety work. I mean, I've been sober for a long time, so for me, thank goodness, I'm knocking wood, like the desire to drink or go out and do that is virtually gone. I mean, I never think about it, and I'm knocking wood, not to say that couldn't happen.
Yeah, same.
But the sobriety work is a work in progress. And I talk all the time to people especially new people or people who are new to sobriety, um, they there's a feeling, at least for some people, for me certainly, when I first got sober, I was like, I'm done. My
Mhm.
life is now solved, and I've crossed the finish line, and I realized relatively quickly, no, that's not how it works. There's there's no, I mean, maybe the
Right.
finish line is when when you pass away. I don't even know if that's true, but there's certainly these goals that we set for ourselves, and we're told to, right? We're indoctrinated in this culture anyway.
Of course. And
Set
then
this
there's no
goal.
there
Yeah.
there.
If you had this much money, if you had this house, if you had this job, everything would be settled. This, husband, wife, girlfriend, whatever it might be. And that's just not how it works. And I'm not trying to suggest that. Another thing is that, working on your life sounds like, oh, it sounds like a bummer, and it's not. I mean,
Yep.
uh, you know, digging down and looking at stuff can be so enlightening and so freeing that you
Yeah.
feel a million pounds lighter after you looked at something that was traumatic and picked it apart and had some realizations about yourself, your behavior, the behavior of people who may have put you in that position. So
Yes. Yeah.
and
And
yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just
I
going
was
to say,
gonna say, how was it hard for you to accept help or to be vulnerable? And did you look at vulnerability back then as more of a weakness than something that was very courageous? Or how did vulnerability and asking for help and learning from others play into your trajectory over the last 41 years?
well, it's interesting because one of the realizations I had, maybe 10 years ago was that my vulnerability was really accessible to me, and I was really able to share it with other people to about 85%. And
Mm,
I thought, and I had to call bullshit on myself. It's like, okay, you're being very vulnerable and open and revealing of your inner self up to a point,
mm,
but are you really digging down, doing the growing down work, as you say, of being utterly honest with yourself and with other people, and um, looking just really carefully and combing through all the stuff that needs to be teased apart, in order to feel like you have real intimacy with other people and with yourself.
mhm.
Um, so,
Can you talk about the instance that happened for you, or the moment, or what was going on in your life during that time, or is it too private?
I think I can talk about it. I
Okay.
mean, I was living in LA and I was working, and I was relatively recently divorced, and I thought that everything was fine, right? And I had a girlfriend, and everything was okay, and I'd sort of resigned myself to a certain kind of life, and I don't think I was being totally honest with myself about where I was emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and then I met a woman who you know quite well, and
I do.
she uh, she saw me. She saw
Mm-hmm.
me, and it was scary and wonderful, and she said, "I want it all. I want you to be really honest. Like, give it all, and I might not like all of it. If I don't, I'll tell you." And
And that
I
she will.
what?
And that she will.
Yeah, no, she will. And so, and to be honest, I had tried that before in other relationships, and when I started getting really honest, the person in the relationship was like, "How fucking dare you?" Like, so I felt as if I was being set up, like
Mm,
it was a trap. Be totally honest,
right.
and once you're honest, I will kill you. With this
Right.
woman, she was clear-eyed and looked at me and said, I don't like that. you know, that's really too bad. And I love you, and I want to be with you. And so being, I think that something that we all, whether it's conscious or subconscious, want is to be seen, really seen for who we are.
Yes.
And you know, being able to be honest about the shitty part of me um, made it so much easier for me to give all the good part of me to
Mm,
this woman. And as I said, that was, you know, 30 years into sobriety. And, you know,
right.
where I give myself credit is that I didn't close myself off to it. You know, I didn't get to the place where I was like, I'm done.
Right.
When I saw it, I was like, okay, I need to make some changes because this is a much
Right.
way for me to go.
I think we do that a lot where we draw upon our accomplishments in sobriety, and I don't think it has to be consecutive days. I know that we count days and we count months and years, but I do think that people get so much and accomplish so much of their capacity to grow and understand themselves, even when they have slips, if they've had long chunks of time and so on. But I think that I always go back to when that next hard thing comes up, especially in relationship with others, whether it's an intimate friendship or an intimate job or an intimate relationship, that we're like, okay, I can do this. I can walk through this really uncomfortable, vulnerable place where I feel like my skin's on inside out and I want to just end it and be like, nah, I'm good. Like, I've got this far. Like, I got 30 years. Like, I'm good. Like, just let's do it this way. And, we'll
Mhm.
see how it goes. But that we're willing to push through because we've known that we've done it before. And for me, that's been a really powerful tool that I've used, especially in later in my sobriety.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting. One of the things that didn't happen to me till, you know, also relatively recently in my long sobriety is that I, you know, I don't want to talk too much, I guess, about like the ins and outs of 12-step programs, but you know, one of the things I think everybody knows about is taking a moral inventory.
Mhm.
When I did it when I was 26 or however old, like 26 when I got sober,
Mhm.
I it was basically a long, relatively deep, probably not totally honest look at what a shitty person I was. And
Right. Well, we didn't know at 26 what a shitty person you
right.
are. What is
Right.
not you.
But then what happened was when I looked at that step again, you know, 6 or 7 years ago, whenever it was, I was like, wait a minute, if I'm doing a really honest moral inventory, I got to look at the good things in me. I have to give myself. It's not just a ledger of my just you
Yeah,
know indiscretions and bad behavior and
yes,
all this stuff. Like I have some really good qualities, and I need to give myself some credit for that also. Um, so
right.
so my inventory became much broader, and you know I don't know if that's something that people can do in early sobriety, but for me it took a long time for that to kind of marinate and become
Hmm.
what it is. The other thing I wanted to say, I was thinking about how so many people kind of brace themselves and get uncomfortable with the word sober, like stone cold sober. It sounds boring and all this stuff. And I was thinking about how in television shows and movies, 12-step meetings are always depicted as this horrible downtrodden. And I got to tell you, you know, for anyone out there who watches this, who is considering, you know, getting into a program, if you
Yeah,
find the right meeting, it is fucking hilarious. It
it's
is so
hilarious.
much fun. people laughing and telling these hilarious stories about getting arrested or crashing their car or losing their house. I mean, it's tough stuff, but they've gotten to a place where they can look at it and laugh at it because the people in the room have been there.
Yes.
And it's not this dirge. So the idea, this false idea that a lot of artists have, particularly that if they don't alter their consciousness, they won't be creative anymore, is just, pardon me, bullshit.
Yeah. Can you please talk a little bit more about that? Because I work with a lot of really creative types and did before I was doing this for a living. And so I know that they believe that, and I know that they don't buy it. Let's just look at how many years, well, let's just talk about one of my favorite movies for 1 second, Diner.
Mhm.
Well, how many years after you got sober did you make Diner? Was it like seven
Oh,
or
I,
8?
no, I was not sober.
Oh,
I was
okay.
not sober then. No.
Okay. And so looking back at it, how does it feel to look at that movie for you in sobriety?
Um, well, yeah, I look at it and I mean it's a great movie. And it's one performance that I would really like to have back again. I would like to
Yeah,
have it back again
I
because
hear that a lot.
I,
Yeah.
I would like to, because I think I wasn't as creative when I was
Right.
drinking as when I'm sober. I think I
Right.
was thinking as clearly, and I think that there were probably, days during that shoot where I was, had a blackout the night before, or was hungover at least. And uh, I think that, for me, being being sober when I was still drinking meant
Mhm.
being uncomfortable.
Right.
Not comfortable in my skin, and which the alcohol solved that. Like now I'm comfortable, right?
Right.
But as I've gotten into sobriety more, it's like I'm more comfortable now than I ever was when I was drinking. And
Mhm.
because of that, I can allow my mind to just go wherever it will. And I think that I'm much more creative than I was when I was drinking because it it depressed me. It's a depressant.
Yeah.
Um,
What was
and
the first thing that you did? What was the first thing that you made creatively after you had some time in sobriety that you were like, oh, wow, I like not only can I do this, but this is way better?
um, I think that it was I did a two-character play at this regional theater in Providence, Rhode Island called Mass Appeal, about this old sort of drunken priest who was very comfortable in an affluent community, and his parish was all very well-heeled people, and this really idealistic and sort of ideologically pure seminarian who had a wild existence beforehand, had drug problems, was bisexual, and all this stuff. And the actor who I was working with was, in fact, a terrible drunk.
Mm,
And so the combination of being sober and playing,
mm,
and acting with someone who's a great actor, but also actually diminishing himself, being able to observe him diminish himself
mm.
with his drinking was sort of profound for me. Uh, and I just felt more creative, lighter, more present.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and any person who is an actor, especially, being present is an enormous thing that audiences pick up on, whether you're on a stage or in a film. Like if you're alive. So I think that was my first moment of feeling the change.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of what I see is the difference in their eyes and that are they lit up from inside? They could be playing a really difficult, challenging, depressing character. but they still have that light where the audience can engage, where they can hold your attention on the screen. It's when that's sort of dark, they can be, that you're just not as connected, same way you aren't in real life with those people that are kind of just walking through and doing the motions. And I think that's why, and I always say to a lot of my clients, like, no, I could go through the list of Emmys and Oscars and Golden Globes and all the statues that you think you want and name every single person that I know that it happened in sobriety. None of it happened when they were, out there drinking. And
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that people just, kind of miss or they don't realize. But I mean, I got to see your performance playing a drunk guy at Night of the Iguana, and knowing you obviously well prior to that, and then seeing you perform. And that was the thing that I was most struck with, was how present you were on stage and accessible and vulnerable to the audience to see and and feel your pain, feel what you were going through. And I think that really only happens when the actor can be present on the stage. Does that make sense to
It,
you?
it does make sense. And I think this phrase popped in my head when you're talking about how people talk about liquid courage,
Yes.
about how drinking makes you bolder and capable of doing all this stuff. And I think that may be true in the short term, but
Yeah.
I think that being sober, once if you get comfortable in your sobriety, then that courage is so much more easily accessible, and
Yeah.
it's and the range of it can be so much broader,
Mhm.
uh, and the aftermath of it is basically nothing.
Right,
You're not cleaning up wreckage
right,
afterwards.
right.
So I think for my artistic self and for my life as a whole, it's just been such an incredible blessing that I don't forget every day. I think about how blessed I am to have gotten to that place and to be here where I am.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Um, what's the best advice that you've ever gotten?
Oh boy, the best advice I've ever gotten. Um, okay, the best advice I've ever gotten. I just thought of what it is. This guy said to me, I was doing a play in New York a million years ago, and I think that my then wife was pregnant, and I have been, I hope, a really dedicated and present father. And this guy said to me, "There's no such thing as quality time. There's just time.
Hmm,
So put in the time, and the quality will come when it comes."
I
Um,
love
yeah, and I think that that's true about anything, about relationships. Put in the time. You can't put in quality time in your day planner or your calendar and
right.
expect it to be this profound
Well,
thing. You
right.
just, you just put in time, and things happen, conversations happen, experiences happen, and suddenly it's glorious and magnificent. But you can't always engineer that. You just got to be present and be in the moment and be with the people you love. And that the beautiful moments will come if you give them enough time to happen.
I love that. What's the worst advice that
Um,
I gave you?
I mean, it's probably something as mundane. I mean, it was part of the thing in this play is, probably something like, have a couple of drinks, you'll feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, that didn't work. You know,
Exactly. I love that. That
yeah,
doesn't work. Bad advice.
that didn't, no,
Bad advice.
that didn't pan out for me very well.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being open, vulnerable. I love getting to know you over the last couple of years and being in your presence and learning more about you. So thank you for doing this. And
Thank
yeah.
you, Lisa. You too. More. I mean, we'll do something less formal, hopefully.
Yeah.
All right.